Three, two, one, and we should be live. Mr. McMomble is not with us today, so I'm going to pass it to Mitch to do the intro.
Hello and welcome to the Beerumverate. We are a bunch of guys on sifted.net that love drinking beer and talking about video games. Quick disclosure, we are not promoting drinking. If you do drink, we ask that you do drink responsibly, and we are not sponsored by any kind of beer company. But if one wants to come our way and sponsor us, we'd be glad to listen and possibly drink your beer on the show and give it our nice, touching, warm reviews. But I'm your host today. My name is Mitch. Mr. McWomble, unfortunately, is not with us. Our guest will have to let us know where he's at because I have a feeling he's been captured again by a group of people, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I have to welcome my fellow co-host, the master of technicians, the OBS master. That is one Sir Matt Burkoff. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing mighty fine tonight.
We'll get to that in a second. So, and our guest for today, because McWomble is out, some say that the power of his impressions of games rubs off on people, maybe a little bit too much. He has such an impression. He has convinced at least 3 people to play, which one Sir McWomble quotes, they are a marvelous series of video games. It is the Yakuza Yakuza of the streets, and he is also master in the sheets. That is somewhere Evan Pietrowski. How are you doing, sir?
I'm sorry, guys. I didn't. This is just really bad timing. It's really hot in here. Just give me a second. Just The summer is not over in Japan. Global warming is real.
It's getting to the fall season, so I think I need to.
I'm doing. Thanks for inviting me on the show. It's been a nice weekend for me so far. Kind of in a celebratory mood. Apparently, I think Burkoff just got back from Mardi Gras. I'm not too sure what's going on there, or it's a Halloween costume that he's just trying out.
It's just to let everybody know that my avatar is real. That is me.
It is real. That is you. I successfully escaped, and I might be available maybe once within the next month. I move from place to place, keep them guessing. So that's all I can say about that. But glad to be on the show.
That's great.
Already off the rails.
I will make it work. So I do have to say, if you do like the show at all, we'd love for you to hit that like button. We would love for you to subscribe. We are here every single week on most of the time it's a Saturday, depending on what time zone you're in. But if you're American, we're always on a Saturday. It's always going to stay that way. But then if you also do want to be on the show, feel free to reach out to myself, Burkoff, or McWomble. We'd love to bring people onto the show as well. So thank you for coming, Evan. I'm happy for your victory, but yet, history does repeat itself sometimes, and you know what happened last year. So I'm just saying that out loud to you.
Oh, don't worry. Once Aaron Rodgers retires, we're going to be back in the shit. So I will enjoy it while we can. But, the oldest rivalry in the NFL, and I think just last year, the year before that, the Packers finally got above 500 in the win column. So you guys had been kicking our ass for probably, the 70s?
Almost 100 years.
Yeah. But so,
that
okay.
sounds really miserable.
Basically, we've beaten you more times than you've beaten us. It took a while to get there, but it's actually fairly close.
Absolutely. I think it's only a 2 to 3 win difference right now. It's not,
which is pretty crazy. The longest rivalry in the NFL. We've played each other more than any other NFL team has played each other, and we're almost at 500 apiece. So, I mean, that's always it's one of those things you'd like to see a bit of back and forth. So it's one of my favorite games of the year. Not that exciting of a game, but anytime the Green Bay Packers defense actually shows up to a game, I get really excited, especially when the offense can't do what they used to do. But
do they always play each other every year?
They play twice a year.
Oh.
They're in the same division, so they play each other twice a year. Once at their home and once at the Bears' home.
I feel like Thanksgiving used to be a thing.
Well, Thanksgiving, it's Detroit always plays on Thanksgiving, which is in the same division. So usually now it seems like the Bears are playing the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving now. I think
Okay.
they've been doing it the last 3 years. And they've always been winning that game. So I don't know why it's more of a Bears play on Thanksgiving and Detroit is the guest.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, I won't say anything. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So
Right. The other Packers rival. Yeah.
Oh, you don't know how many people from being in Minnesota currently, when I wore my jersey on Thursday, how many Vikings fans came up to me and said, "I hope you win."
Of course,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would expect nothing less from a Vikings fan. So
Same here. All right, so Burkhoff has something to say. So Burkhoff has actually something he can say. Let us go to beers. What do you have, Burkhoff? I see you have something. I just don't know what it is.
I am the beer king today. This is why I'm wearing my hood. I've got my massive chalice.
it's so big.
That's what she said.
He can't get his hands around it.
Yeah, so I picked up this glass because Mitch had his giant glass, so I figured I would get a glass even larger.
And to be frank, the fact he wants to one-up me is beautiful. I appreciate that. I do. I have mad respect for it.
It was kind of like, we were at the grocery store yesterday, and I saw it. It was like a prop glass thing, and it was like giant beer glass, fun for everyone. And I was like, oh, I have to buy this. I have to get this giant beer glass. It holds approximately 4 cans. So just to put that in perspective, I am drinking Tenaya Creek because McWomble's not on the show today. So
they can give you shit about it.
Yeah, so I had to bring them back into the mix. I'm drinking their 702 Pale Ale. I've got 3 of those in this bad boy, and that's what I'll be drinking for the episode today. What do you guys?
You're only having a glass of beer today.
Only a glass of beer. That's it. That's
only a single glass of beer. Yeah.
What do you got, Evan?
It's 11 a.m. So I am actually drinking coffee from my very nice Altera coffee cup, coffee company from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They changed their name to Collectivo, but I'm drinking coffee, but a bit later.
Lion, I'm waiting for it.
Well, we're talking. It's creeping up to noon on a Sunday, so.
If you're from Wisconsin, any time is a drinking time. Come on, Evan, you know that.
That's true. I should have. But this is Mino Beer. It's a city just north of Osaka. I probably mentioned it before. I subscribe to a bi-monthly subscription, so they send a case of beer, 3 of kind of their main beers and 1 seasonal beer every 2 months. This is one of their kind of mainstays, just their stout. But it actually won the World Beer Cup for best stout in 2016.
That's cool.
And 2014 and 2009, I believe.
Wow.
Well, it got awards in those 2 years, but it won in 2016. So it's a really, really good stout, 5.5%. Pretty much all the aromas and all the things that you really would hope a stout would have. And yeah, it's one of my favorites. So a bit later, I'm going to be cracking this. So yeah, if you ever see a label that's like this, it just says the word very plainly in very big text. It'll just say pale ale, right? Buy it because this is Mino beer and it's really good. Though I don't think they distribute outside of Japan. And Mitch, how about yourself? What are you drinking?
I'm on call, so I can't drink anything, fellas, right now. So, so I'm going to be the odd man out today. But
I think we should mention real quick. Isn't Pabst? They're either distributing or brewing in Japan now, right?
Yeah, I haven't found it. I just saw on Twitter there was like a Pabst Japan release party in Tokyo.
Yeah,
and it's like I like triple, like I did like a triple take. I was like, what? Like this doesn't make sense. My brain is not connecting. I haven't dug into it. I haven't done any sleuthing yet, but I'm going to find it.
And he will post it on Twitter, which you can find him at thestanduser, which his Twitter handle is just below his picture if you want to know where to find him on Twitter. And also either of us on Twitter as well. Our Twitter handles are actually now below on the picture. So do follow us. We all do post some interesting stuff, including my adventure through the buggiest Witcher 3 game most people have told me they've ever seen and experienced.
That's the buggiest I've ever seen, for sure.
All right, so we have rumors. I do have one, but I'm curious, do you two gentlemen have a rumor at all whatsoever?
I was trying to come up with one before we got on air, and I was like, well, what if Microsoft maybe bought Sony? Because they would have bought Insomniac if that hadn't.
So they're like, we'll just
because they
buy the company that bought the company.
They decided to buy because Microsoft couldn't buy Insomniac. They decided to buy Sony because Sony bought them first. I love that.
That was like the closest I could come to like a rumor though, and
I mean, literally, I think of it as like the Marvel thing where it's like Disney couldn't get Spider-Man, so Disney just bought Sony Pictures so they could get Spider-Man in their universe again.
Yeah, I couldn't quite work out how I was going to bring that up, so it's not really a rumor. It's just sort of my my
there's only so many
do.
like late night conversations you can overhear at like bars and restaurants, and just sometimes when you go out, there's just not an industry head or like a someone higher up just talking business at the bar. So
nah, my sources giving me plenty of info, and this is a hot take.
Take means bamboo in Japanese, so
that's awesome.
Bamboo.
It's hot bamboo, man. Like that stuff's great. So the rumor that they told me is that apparently Remedy, so they came out with their game Control, which is getting like its regular review scores, which has been in the 80s, and I was like, oh yeah, like it seems like they never can hit the 90s, and my inside source was like, well, that's purposeful. They never want to get 90s, bro. They just want the 80s.
Why do they?
Because the 80s was the best time period to hang out in. 90s wasn't that great to them. They love the 80s. Like that's when they all grew up. They grew up in the 80s. So why would they ever want to hit the 90s?
Okay.
So this is like that Jim Carrey movie where he's obsessed with the number 23, but for them it's just like just because the 80s was a great time, like that number must be
significant to their I mean, it's why they're so successful. No matter what. It's why they're successful. It's because 80s matter.
Interesting. Wait a minute. When did Control come out? Did it come out in August?
It came out in end of August. Yes.
It's the 8th month of the year. 8-0. It all makes sense.
Like it.
Yes. All right. So we're going to get right into our topic then, which is an interesting one. So I'm just going to introduce kind of the topic, and then I'm going to kind of lead it into our conversation. So what I do want to talk about is games in the summertime. So when I was looking at 2019 and seeing all the great games that came out, so we had Resident Evil 2, we had Kingdom Hearts 3, we had Crackdown 3, we had Jump Force, we had Metro Exodus, Anthem, Division 2, Sekiro, Devil May Cry 5. Like that's just the first chunk of the year. Like that was only the first up to March for games. And now when you look at what games were slated to come out in the summertime, so when I say summertime, I'm looking at June through mid-August. Really, end of August is really when the Q4 kicks in, even though technically it's September is when Q4 is. But here's what came out. And like those games before I was talking about, those are good, high-quality AAA games that are really notable. Like obviously there's other games that came out too. But here's the games on my list that came out that are notable for this summer that came out. Rage 2, Team Sonic Racing, Crash Team Racing, Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's not very many games, guys. So I was like, okay, why is this a trend? Like, does this happen all the time? So I did some research. I went back and I looked up, and literally last summer, the only really significant games that came out last summer, Yakuza 0, Crash Bandicoot, Yakuza 3.
Hey, that's enough, man. I mean, that's worth the entire summer. What are you talking about? I'm sorry. Please continue. Please continue.
No, and so so there was talks about, well, why did Crash sell so well compared to Spyro? You know, Spyro did come out in a Q4 last year, where Crash Bandicoot came into the summertime. Well, you know why? Because there's no other games to play. Like, so it just opens up the question of like why are they not deciding to release big budget games in the summertime when there's clearly a market? Like when I named all those games, some of them were coming out weeks behind each other, like 2-week chunks behind each other. So
Right.
in these games, clearly it's 3 months, and I named 3 to 4 notable games. That's one game a month. If not, like one of them never comes out in one of the months, and then you get 2 of them in 1 month. So it's just a way huge difference. And this is the reason why I think Yakuza sells so well in the West as well, and it found its audience, is because it's the only damn game that got released in the summertime. So people are like, I'll give it a shot. Ended up enjoying it, and that's why it sells so well in the West now too. I think that's I don't think it's the full factor, but I think it's a big contributing factor of why I think Yakuza ended up doing so well in selling like it did. I mean, you look at Judgment. That came out in the summertime this summer, and it sold past their expectations. And you know why? Because there's not very many games out in the summertime. So I'm just going to open up to you guys and just ask you to just a general of like, and I'll go with you, Evan, first, is why do you think we don't see a lot of big budget titles come out in the summertime? And we see them in the beginning of the year, we see them at the end of the year, but somehow the middle of the year just gets left.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you're specifically focusing on maybe June, July is maybe part of it.
Yeah, June, July, early August.
Early August, yeah.
Really anything out until the end of August, that's really when Q4 kicks in.
Right. Yeah, I guess in my specific situation, since I actually have a summer vacation off, I actually do tend to play a ton of video games in the summer. Like it's my time to either buy new games or go through my backlog. But most people don't really have a summer vacation unless you're going to school. I mean, I just might bring up the age-old observation that in the summertime, maybe people are not inside playing video games, and thus they want to go outside. But then how do you take into account for like the Southern Hemisphere, right? Like it'd be the exact opposite for them. To me, it's actually quite a conundrum because summertime, everything is like front loaded or back loaded in terms of releases. And maybe part of that is because I'm sure there's someone crunching numbers, obviously. And once you start ramping up to, especially in Western countries, holiday mode, where like, you know, there's like Canadian Thanksgiving. I don't know what that has to do with video games. You got Thanksgiving in the States, you have Halloween, you have all these things. I think people get into this holiday season, which would be fall, early winter, where you get in the mode of like spending money is okay. And I'm completely pulling all of this out of my ass, but I think there might be something to it where like why are systems, why do they come out in October, November? It's like leading up to December, so they can buy it and put it under the tree, and their kids can open it on December 25th. Or whatever.
What do you think, Matt?
So yeah, my initial thoughts were like fiscal year end, right? For a lot of companies is March, if I'm not mistaken, is their last
Correct. Yep.
month that they post, profits and things. So that was sort of my initial thought was, well, they skipped the summer months because they want to make sure that they get all those profits in towards the end of the fiscal year to cover any losses from prior in the year. But I honestly don't know why this is a thing where games are not released in the summer, at least not big blockbuster games.
And I think you bring up a good point, Evan, when you're talking about holiday season, and I totally get that. And I think the main part of the argument I bring it into this is that, yeah, there are going to be games that, of course, you want to sell during the holiday season. Of course, you're going to want to sell a console in the holiday season. That's when people are going to spend the most money. And obviously, those consoles are really expensive. So that's probably the only time of year you feel like you're going to buy yourself a console is probably going to be during the holiday season when you get your gift cards from grandma or your $10 from so-and-so and you start piling it together. Heck, didn't you have a sock drawer full of money for your Pro?
Yeah. I think, and that's another thing, like throughout the year, like after Christmas and then getting into January, people go into savings mode,
right?
To prepare for the holiday season. So by the time September, October, or even, November comes around, like they have some money saved up. And while they might be buying presents for other people, they might, all right, yeah, this is kind of holiday season. You get into that spending mode and yeah, I'll buy a game or whatever. And there's got to be numbers for that, right?
Yeah, I guess the difference that I feel like is between a console and a game is there's a huge difference in price. And a price of a game is not going to be as expensive as the price of a console. And so that's where, right. We still should have games in Q4, but I think there's definitely an opportunity to spread it out a lot more, which I think will help a lot more of the games that come out. Because some of these are going against each other and it's like, you don't have to. Like an example of like, obviously I'm talking about Q4, and so obviously it would be pushed to the early part of the year, but I'm just using the example. Oh yeah, well actually I could use one from this early part of the year, which could easily be like, hey, Sekiro sold well, Division sold well, but if one of those maybe moved, maybe Sekiro would have sold more because it only stayed in the top 10 for 2 months, and then it dropped. Devil May Cry had an even worse drop. They only stayed in the top 10 for 1 month, and after that they dropped out of the MPD altogether. It didn't sell amazing, but they said it sold well enough for them to want to make a sequel. But if that moved to summer, maybe that would have sold a lot more.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Sekiro was even 2 months. I think it was like maybe a full month before it dropped down.
It was top 10 for 2 months, and then it was in the top 20 the third month, and then it dropped out after that.
All right.
Yeah, I think, yes, like a game like Devil May Cry, and I don't know what it sold, but if it dropped out that quickly, they probably couldn't have afforded to push it into summer. That might be part of it. And I think...
But you have Resident Evil 2. That thing made you a shit ton of money. Like
January is a weird month as well, because it's just after the holiday season. And there's actually usually a dip in releases in January. Everything, because I think this is what Matt was talking about the fiscal year. And I think this might be one reason that games don't come out in the summer is when you're in the dev cycle, we're already in this mode of knowing that games just don't come out in the summer. So it's like, as long as we get this game out by the end of the fiscal year, why would we put it out now and we can work on it for an extra couple months and then release it in February and March? So it gives them that extra time because they're not going to release the game. Nobody releases games anymore in the summer anyways. So let's work on it for a couple months and then like pack it, release it in March, even though, what was it? Like there was kind of a joke going around. Maybe it was like last E3 when there was around the time, like, remember everyone was like, it was like March 20th.
Yeah, there was a bunch of games. 20th. Yeah, that were all
God of War
announced.
came out then.
So much so that like a couple games moved because it was so packed. But like, I don't know. What do you guys think about that idea of maybe it's just why release it in the summer when as long as we release it within this fiscal year, let's release it, February, March and work on it a couple more months. Like, do you think that's something in the dev's mind when they're
it wouldn't be the developers, it'd be the publishers that would be making
the publishers, decision. Sorry, yeah.
Because the developers, I'm sure, would just spend as much time as possible.
Yeah. I mean, they might say like, we should be working on this game a bit more, but the publisher is the one. Yeah,
the clock's ticking. Yeah. We need to get the shit out. Yeah. I think, I think they're already spending the money to develop these games, and so like we might as well take the summer to spend this money now because we know that we're going to recoup it in fourth quarter.
Do you really know you're going to recoup it in fourth quarter? If it's a tight fourth quarter, you might not sell as many copies if you released it earlier and just kept working on it later, because we do have the option of updates.
Well, that's a valid point, and I don't know. part of what I want to get into, I guess, later on is sort of just notable summer releases and, games that did do well and were critically acclaimed, maybe did well in sales that were, like summer releases.
And I think one thing you brought up, Evan, that also works within it, because you said you teach, so obviously you have the summer off. Well, all those kids have the summer off too.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's like parents in the summertime, because the kids are around all day long, wouldn't you want the kid? Most of the time they're going to say like, yeah, do you want to play outside? But when you look at the amount of hours they have in a day now, they have all 24 hours in the day, and they're not having to be subjugated to school for 8 to 10 hours of that day anymore. So, hey, they'll spend 3 hours outside, but they could be spending more time playing video games in the summertime. Heck, parents might be saying, don't bug me, go play your video games instead at the moment. So there's actually more of an opportunity for people to play video games. But I do want to shoot it to you, Burkhoff, as a question of curiosity, because Evan already said he does have time in the summer because of his job. Myself, I kind of have the same amount of time I have in the summer than I do in all the other seasons of the year, just because I kind of manage all my time together to kind of balance it out. But what is it for you in the summer? Are you more busy in the summer that you're not able to play as much video games as you would in like the fall or the other times of year?
No, but I'm an adult with a regular job, so I just have the same amount of time.
Holy shit. All right, continue.
No slight against you, StanUser.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because my best friend from high school is a teacher as well, and I'm extremely envious of him. He basically has all this time in the summer to just do whatever the hell he wants. He's got every federal holiday off. Unfortunately, I just don't have that. So like my time to play games
most people don't.
Yeah,
I would say most people. It doesn't matter what season or month you're in. You just work until you're able.
It's the same amount,
and you go back to work. Yeah.
Because you still have vacations of 4th of July. You still have that. And during the year, you have Christmas and New Year's and all those kinds of other holidays. So it's not like there's specific special holidays during that time of year that's any different than any regular time of year.
Right. And when you are taking vacation at your own leisure, you're not necessarily saying, well, I'm going to take this week off to play video games, like
not necessarily. Some people do. Some hardcore gamers may like choose to, hey, like a big release is coming out. I think I remember even Matt from Game Face said that, heck, he would take a couple of days off of work once Final Fantasy Remake comes out so he could play that.
I mean, when I was single, I took the Friday that Skyrim came out, 11/11/11. I took that off.
Never forget.
Because I
will never forget that day, because I was in college, and so everyone you go to each room, practically everyone was playing Skyrim.
Oh yeah, like I took that Friday off. I was single. I went and bought the game at midnight, played it all night, as long as I possibly could. Slept 2 hours, woke up again, and played it the rest of the weekend.
Nice.
But then you get older, and then you get married, and things change. Priorities.
Yeah. So we're basically proving the point as like time-wise, there's not a big difference in time, except obviously for someone like Evan, who's school teacher, so obviously he's going to have the summers off, or someone that is in school that has the summer off, they do have more time. So I guess the argument, I guess it's tricky to figure out why would they not do that. If it's not time, then what is it exactly that really makes them feel as if they can't release the games in the summertime? Or
this is specifically anecdotal to Wisconsin. Mikwambo, cheers. I know you appreciate this. Winter's like 5 months long.
Yeah, it sucks.
So when the summer comes, not only is it absolutely beautiful outside, it's dry. And I'm comparing this now to Japan. Japan is insanely humid. That's why I actually tend to stay inside, ironically, in the summer, because it's so disgustingly hot and humid. But in Wisconsin, it is beautiful, and everyone's been in their house drinking whiskey by the fireplace for so long that the second the weather turns nice, everybody is outside. all the patio furniture is out. Every single restaurant is packed. Everyone has shorts and sunglasses on.
Right.
And because they know that like summer, it only lasts a month and a half, maybe 2 months, 2.5 months if you're lucky, depending on the year.
Yeah.
Everyone is always outside, running, boats, jogging, dogs, because they know once October hits, that weather could take a dip and you're back in winter for 5 months. So very, very specific. But I can see how even for kids, you're not going to be playing games on Saturday and Sunday. You're going to be outside as much as you can before winter hits. So, I mean, regionally, that might be part of why, right?
Right. No, I totally get that. And being in Minnesota, I think the only thing that's been tricky in recently is the summers actually have not been very dry. They've been humid, and it's either humid or it's raining all the time now. So I it was indoors a lot this summer, unfortunately, because there was a couple great days, but it was just really bad summer this summer. But
actually, continue. It's hot. I gotta change. You guys can keep going. Whew.
So
I'll tell you, it is really hot in Japan right now. McWomble, this is for you. Don't say I never do anything for you.
I should have worn a vest.
I did say he was a freak in the sheets. So yeah, I think that, and I think I'll bring it to this: is there a game that you feel like this first quarter that would have came out in the summertime instead, gave it some more time, and you think it would have done better because of it? Because obviously we're getting to those windows where the fall and the spring are now becoming so compact. Like heck, we had Kingdom Hearts and Resident Evil 2 2 weeks apart from each other. Like that was insane to even think of that. Is there a game you feel like out of that beginning of the year that should have moved to summer that, because of it would probably do better?
I'll actually ask a question to Matt, because I know you've played this game and I have not, and I actually don't know how it sold, but to me it kind of seemed like a blip on the screen.
Okay.
That I believe it came out in June. Did Void Bastards. Now I know that this is a much smaller game, that like the people that might want to play this game, it's not as broad as some other games in other genres. But that game kind of just seemed like it was like, boop. I was like, if they maybe would have released that in July, maybe they could have given it, I don't
think it was June.
I mean, on here it says June. Sorry, May.
May.
Because I didn't really hear much after that game came out, even though people talked about it on podcasts. But I don't know.
I don't know that it would have done any different. I think it's a very niche game.
I think you're right.
It services a certain type of demographic, and I feel like that's the case for a lot of like the game. Mitch, you want me to run down some of the games that I have that have come out during the summer?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. I see where you're going with it, so go with it.
Okay, so some of the games that I have on a list that like are very notable for like critically acclaimed or hit a certain market for their release. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, June 18th. Indie game. Dragon Quest Builders 2 technically came out in December of 2018, but that was in Japan. It got released in July here
that's right.
in the US. So you've got that 6-month delay for translation and localization. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, kind of a niche game. That came out July 19th this year. Fire Emblem Three Houses, another niche game, even though it's a AAA Nintendo game. July 26th. Going back to last year, Vampire. Do you guys remember that game?
That is a game I'm interested in playing at some point. That seems like a game you would like.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but that came out in June.
Okay.
Octopath Traveler, July 13th, 2018.
My birthday. Perfect time for that game to come out.
Right. Another niche game. Dragon Quest 11 actually came out in July in Japan and then September worldwide the following year. That's an interesting one because it's a Japanese summer release, and I don't know why they did that. I'm not sure if if it has anything to do with the fact that people don't go to work with Dragon Quest when that comes out.
I don't know when Dragon Quest games. Maybe they always come out in July. They have. I'm not sure.
Here's the anomaly. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, June 7th, 2016 is when that came out. That's an EA, AAA, big budget, highly marketed.
For how that sold, I mean, for how the first one sold and how bad reviews it got, I wouldn't consider that. I mean, I'd consider that an anomaly 100% of being like, I think they were just releasing it to release it and not really to, I don't think it was going to do super hot regardless of when it came out.
Okay.
That's because it's a bad game. That's why.
I think the concept when it originally came out was great. I think just the execution with the first game was so bad that it just had such a bad rep that I don't know it was worth saving or could be saved.
I love the first game, and they put an open world into the second game, and it did not work at all. But
the first game was
but
bad.
it's kind of a niche game. It's like a first person parkour game. Like,
yeah,
how many people want to play that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was really intrigued by the first game. You and I can talk
I love the
off
first
camera about how much I don't like it.
Okay. Anyways, the next game on the list is
I Am Setsuna. So that was a February Japanese release. Came out in July here in the States, worldwide. So I think that was another one that like at least 6 months, to get the translation and the localization done. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, August 23rd. I think that was actually probably slated to be released in September or October, but they pushed it back because they didn't want to hit, the Call of Duty Battlefield area.
More like pushed it forward because.
Well, you know what I meant, yeah.
Because when you push it back, you're technically pushing it to a later month. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Wrong terminology. Yes. Yeah, pushed it. Forward. Heroes of the Storm. Blizzard just ignores everything that happens in the industry, and they just do their own damn thing most of the time.
Sure.
Well, I mean, there's like 3 developers that are like that. It's Blizzard, it's Rockstar, and now it's starting to become CD Projekt Red is starting to become that as well.
Yeah.
It's like doesn't matter. Just it comes out and.
Well, look at like Heroes of the Storm. It says June 2nd, 2015.
Yeah.
What about The Last of Us? That game released like a couple days before E3, did it not? Like early June. The year it came out.
Yes, which is
That was,
yeah,
what,
and
2013?
Your
also
most favorite game.
yeah, but then also wasn't it Days Gone came out in April or is it May?
I don't know. The date was
It's a
the
zombie
date was
game.
pushed. I remember because it got loaded with a bunch of other games. But
I think it was April because Mortal Kombat came out the end of April. That's what it was. Yes. So so yeah, it's and then what God of War came out in March. It seems like Sony kind of is pushing a lot of their and like an example of if you ever see Raising Kratos, the documentary on YouTube, I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting documentary. But they bring up even the point of where they were going to do a February release date, and then they asked Sony, could we push it one more time? And they said, okay, well, here's your date now. And they got to be able to push it to March. So it seems like developers and Sony are kind of pushing towards that, late March, April, May, June kind of area. Recently, at least.
Right.
But keep going. You got your list.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I got Her Story, which was an indie darling. That was June 24th, 2015.
Great game.
Rocket League, July 7th, 2015. That was another.
I remember that day. It was a great day. Free on PlayStation Plus. It was a great day. I still play that game.
I still play it occasionally too. Yeah. Sniper Elite 3. That was July 1st, 2014. And then Animal Crossing New Leaf, that came out November in Japan and then June in the Western world.
And that was 2013.
Yeah.
Was that the last Animal Crossing game before?
I think it was the most. I think it was the last major Animal Crossing release. You had Pocket Camp on mobile, but
Oh, that's
Poor
right.
people have to wait 7 years for the new game. Oh, I feel so bad for you.
All right. So with this list, Burkoff, what's your thesis?
Well, my point is, like, most of the games that get released in the summer are niche titles.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
If you look at like all the other ones that do come out in the summer, it's like ports from one platform to another, or
Localizations.
yeah, or localizations, or re-releases, or things like that. It seems like that's the time that the industry takes to just sort of like, well, we've got all this shit, let's just push it out again.
So you're basically saying it's a summer dump.
Yeah, kind of.
Summer,
We
summer
should
dump.
that should
Well,
have been that should have been the hashtag summer dump, not summer
There you go.
drought. It's a sour
Well,
dump.
you'd already come up with the hashtag before I figured this out, so
Well,
But it does bring up a good
That's fun.
but it does bring up a good point that because of that gap, it does allow a window for opportunity for niche games to have an opportunity to break out, to be a game that can be released later. Another example was when I mentioned Yakuza, of that those games are always coming out in the summer and they're always selling well. And so they keep localizing that game from Japan. Heck, now we have the entire collection available for PS4, which people thought we would never ever get, like especially Evan, who loves these games so much.
Yes.
yeah, I think the only other anomalies are F1 and Madden. So F1 and Madden always seem to come out in August or July, and
Okay.
Madden is obvious because you have to get it out before football season actually
Preseason.
starts.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense. Yeah.
I guess my question would be with your thesis then, Burkoff, and I'll throw it to Evan. Is if this is kind of, we've kind of found that I guess the summertime is for niche games / localizations and things like that, where there isn't opportunities to release it during the year. If the AAA games start getting into that the summertime, where would these games go? Would they be as successful if they have to be forced to be spread out throughout the year instead of having the summer dump that we have?
I mean, I guess we don't know exactly like why all of these niche games have been released in the summer months, but I guess if the AAA games started kind of jumping in and taking up space on the supermarket counter and pushing all the other stuff out of the way to make room, I think they would just either just do what they can, like look at the calendar and maybe it's because it's not some massive AAA game that needs this huge marketing push, that they can just move it either before or scattered in between or after. I mean, I'm not too sure exactly, but I would say definitely niche games could be a bit more flexible with release dates than some of these other games when you have like millions of people's eyes on it, and then the game gets pushed back and everyone's like, oh, what the fuck, put the game out. Like some of these games, I don't even think it would matter. Like Her Story, we're going to work on that for 3 more months. Like nobody cares.
Yeah.
So they could be a bit more flexible with that. I don't know. I guess they could work around it more so than AAA games could.
What do you think, Burkoff?
Well, I think the other part of it too is the conventions and the I don't know. Is a convention? Is that what you would call it? Like E3 and Gamescom?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you've got like the beginning of the summer is E3, the end of the summer is Gamescom. I think that's part of the reason that at least in the last 3 to 4 years, what was the first Gamescom? 2009?
I don't know.
I don't know, actually, top of my head.
Okay. I think that that's part of the reason we don't see these games come out in the summer is you have a lot of the big name publishers are focusing on, okay, not only do we need to hit the fiscal year end and make sure that we get those profits to cover any losses that we've had throughout the rest of the year, but we also need to make sure that our marketing teams are hitting the push for E3 and Gamescom, or E3 and I think is it PAX West that's in the summer too?
Or is it?
Yeah, didn't that just happen, PAX West?
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. I think it's West is in West is during this
Okay.
time.
So Burkoff, you're saying maybe the summer months are more about promotion than actually releasing the games.
Right, exactly. So they're worried
That's
about
not bad. Yeah, that makes sense.
they're worried about hitting like those marketing beats,
Sure.
and then like okay, we've got the year end to like make up any money that we've spent. You know, because
Right.
it's not cheap to go and set up a booth at E3 or set up a booth at Gamescom or whatever.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and to go with your point, I think you have a really great point here. Is that because you do want the ball rolling, you want the push of the marketing for the game, you want
Right.
build up for your game. It's not going to just be like, I mean, obviously, if it's something that's way big named, like, hey, if they said The Last of Us is out tomorrow, people would go, the marketing would sell itself in that moment. But
Very specific. Yeah, only a few games could
only
probably
a
do
few,
that. Right?
exactly, a few games could do that. And I think maybe the reason why the summer dump works so well after you're thinking about talking about E3 and then Gamescom is E3 is such a, well, we put the expectation that's the celebration of games. And heck, when Square Enix did their conference, there were so many type of niche JRPG games in there that I got to learn about and got my interest. And then I learned, hey, it's out in like 2 months. And so it gets your interest a little bit more to look it up. And then you kind of get into the niche, those niche groups that are like fans of the game. They get the marketing push for that game by themselves without
Right.
having to have this giant market push for it. They're relying on the people that are obsessed with these games that buy them. Like yourself, Evan, you're able to buy a game that is in Japanese because obviously you can read and speak the dialect. And so
I mean, also, and it's sold in like stores,
no,
right?
no,
Next.
exactly. But those people that get them before people in the West, they get to hype all the other people up about it to go like, oh, we played this game already. It was in January. It was super great, blah, blah, blah. And that gets their kind of hype pushed so that they don't have to do extra marketing for it because E3 is going to sell you on that game in the summer.
Yeah, that might definitely be part of it. Going back to what Burkoff said, I'll pose a question to you guys. If conference season, like you said, Burkoff, like E3 to Gamescom or PAX West, if you want to extend it that far,
Right.
if that was pushed to a different season, right, or a different quarter or whatever you want to say spring or winter or whatever, do you think then that because maybe what you're saying is that's their time for promotion, not for releasing games, do you think that that season would then be possibly become what summer is to video game releases, or at least AAA releases now? Do you think that that would affect it that much?
I would say yes, but I think there's no way they wouldn't do what they're currently doing now because, I mean, look at all the factors we talked about. There is there's the end of the fiscal years in March. So obviously June is a good time to start. They have between April, May to start thinking about how are they going to promote the games going into the next fiscal year. June is that
makes sense.
time. June is where you push it, and then you see how the reaction goes. And I think Gamescom has a great opportunity, and the reason why I think even more recently it's getting a lot of better press is because they can use E3 to test the waters. Like this E3, we didn't see any gameplay, and people were upset about that. Well, guess what? In Gamescom, they showed plenty of gameplay at Gamescom. So I think I think Gamescom has a perfect opportunity to fix the whatever they made a mistake on, if they made a mistake in the early marketing, to do that. So and then it seems right into the fourth quarter, which is the holiday season. It's just a perfect placement that I couldn't see it go anywhere else.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's no reason to. It's in summer for a reason. Just the cycle of the quarters. Yeah, they wouldn't. There's nowhere to push that. That's why it ended
like fiscal years were changed. Like okay, my mic. If fiscal years were changed and like small factors like that, and it got moved, yeah, I think the summer dump would definitely still exist. It would just be like the fall dump, the winter dump, whatever it is.
So maybe we figured this out. It's the fiscal year, right? It's the issue of the fiscal year, and it's just where the cycle happens to be. This is where we have promotion and all these things, and then that's where the lull is, and then things ramp up. during what we call holiday season, just because it's that close to maybe the, end of quarter 3, early quarter 4, and
Yeah.
that's just where that is.
I mean, technically, if you run your own business, you can end your fiscal year whenever the hell you want.
Right.
The problem with the EAs and the Ubisofts and all these companies is the fact that like they're publicly traded, and so they have to do their SEC filings and all that kind of crap
in April because of all the taxes. Everything
Yeah,
like
exactly. So you have to finish up all that stuff.
Because even my organization I work for, we've talked about when is best to end our fiscal year as a nonprofit,
Right.
and even like you said, we choose our end of fiscal year of whatever it is, and just because of how our service lines work, some of our service lines run all year round, some of our service lines run just in the summertime, so it's tricky for us to pick when our fiscal year ends. But if you're making something where it's just strictly about video games and it's one thing, you can always decide when you want to do it. And obviously, if it makes it easier to do it near tax season in the US, when you're thinking about the big publishers, a lot of them are like not the home base, but America's a big market in games. Like, we can't deny that. It's a portion that you want to get right when you hit the market with gaming. And so, of course, they want to try to kind of correspond with that kind of tax season for them. So I see it in that aspect.
And then you get games like Mass Effect Andromeda at the end of March. Hey!
That's a game that I would have said if it got moved to summer, it could have sold like hotcakes.
You can't fix that game though. That's the problem.
You can't fix that.
The problem is you cannot fix that.
Forever scarred.
Yeah.
So I would pose this final question to you guys. Just curiosity. Would you, we talked about this summer dump, but of this an opportunity for games, even though we kind of talked ourselves in figuring out, and I think we did a really good job of figuring out why companies are probably doing this. Do we disagree and say, no, we should release some titles, some big titles in the summertime? Would you do that if you were in charge?
Burkhoff?
Yeah, I would. I'd have at least one title. The problem is that you run into like how many games does EA release every year? 4?
Not counting their sports games, I would say 4.
Okay. I was thinking about their sports games.
Then it's probably like 6 to 8.
Okay.
Basketball, football, hockey.
So they're already doing that, right, with Madden.
But I mean, that one's already on a fixed because it has to come out before the season, or else who would buy the new Madden in the middle of the football season?
Well, like 2K with NBA, like that just came out.
Right.
But when does the NBA season doesn't start for like another month or 2, right?
But they're still in the off season. It's not during the season though.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but it's like far enough out. Like technically you could release NBA 2K like October, the end of October, early November, and it'd still be fine. Right?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
Sure.
I'm sure there's
right before, because this weekend is the first weekend that's like the beginning of the NFL season.
Yeah.
And Madden came out 2 weeks ago. So as long as you
it comes out during it comes right before preseason begins is when Madden comes out. So it does it because the rosters are kind of mostly set by then, so they don't have to do major adjustments. Usually the sports games are really strategic in that aspect because they want to do it when the roster is mainly set. Obviously, they're going to do updates to adjust the roster based off of how the season's going or as they get closer, because the NFL have to cut their players down from, what is it? I think it's like 90 players to their 53. And so they have a month to do that, and the game is out during that time frame, but it still is they strategically release those based off how the season is, rosters, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to kind of say you could release that. You could release it way earlier, but I think because of their license, I wonder if the NFL, the NBA, and all that have to say, like, you need to have this game out by this time to help our product sell as like the NFL or the NBA to sell our stuff. You're basically promotion for us. That's all you are. So we want you released at this time. And I think that's where I think they force a window on them rather than EA forces a window on the game developer.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would pick one or two games outside of the sports games released during the summer just to see. If you've got 4 or 5 developers in your wheelhouse, as a publisher, you should have them on cycles where that could happen. I mean, I don't know. I would, if I were running a publisher, I would like to see at least one game in every quarter. And I would probably try to escape the fourth quarter rush, and get some stuff out before then, just to make sure that I was hitting those sales.
And if I'm releasing something in the fourth quarter, I'm releasing it in December because November is usually packed.
But then you miss.
But don't release it in December because no one's going to give it Game of the Year awards. Yeah, like Far Cry 3, like no one talked about it because it came out mid-December, and like all these people at IGN or whatever, and they're having their Game of the Year deliberations. They're like,
I don't know. So the sales counted. Super Smash Bros. Got tons of sales, and they came out in December. They got all.
Super Smash Bros. Is a beast all on its own, though.
But I think on top of that, it got promotion from the Game Awards. I think that's a great opportunity if you want promotion going into it. Obviously,
I see what you're saying.
A Game Award, but if you're not one of those games that's going to win one, like Shenmue 3, I don't think is going to win a Game Award. But man, that
game looks terrible. I'm sorry.
It does.
Play Yakuza. Jesus Christ. Bad. Those games are already out. Yeah, there's a really good series. It's not called Shenmue. It's called Yakuza. Fuck those games. Are not. They're so. I think. Yeah.
I actually have an interesting point on Yakuza and Shenmue that if we have a little bit of time at the end of the show, if you want, I will share it with you. I think you would really like it.
Nick Womble is shaking his head right now. He's
not in the comment section.
I don't think he cares about Shenmue either. So
yeah, he doesn't care about Shenmue either. So Evan, would you do the same? It sounds like Burkoff's in.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as him. Like, why not? Why not try? Like, if you have a couple games in your warehouse, it's like, okay, let's see if we can throw a game out there and see what it does. And then if whatever. There's a lot of variables though. Like you might not even know, like if it was the summer that made it successful or whatever. But I would try it like every year. Try a game that you might want to put out in the spring or the fall. Put it out in the summer. See if that makes a difference.
Right.
I mean, I would try it. Try it with one game.
I agree with you guys both 100%. And I think there's one game I'm thinking about right now that I would have pushed to summer that I think would have done so much better in the summertime. Days Gone. That's a summer kind of game.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that would have been. I think it would have sold better. I mean, I think it sold well. Looks like sales wise, it stayed on the charts on the top 10 for multiple weeks, which is multiple months, which is great. But I think if it went in the summertime, it might have sold even more. So, do you want it? Do you want my Yakuza take really quick? It'll be really short if you want, Evan.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I wrote some notes talking about in a video about how Hugh Suzuki, the founder of Shenmue, is probably kicking himself right now because here he dreamed of making like 12 games for the Shenmue series, and Yakuza already has like 9 games. Like literally,
the story arc is 7 games, 0 to 6,
and literally. And it's Hugh is kicking himself because he's like, Yakuza is living my dream. And who in the world was in the boardroom? Because Yakuza and Shenmue are both made by Sega. This is the even crazier part. When they were working on Shenmue 2, that's when Yakuza got pitched to them. Why in the world did they not say, that sounds a lot like Shenmue. Why don't you help them out to make their game? because they are almost practically the same kind of game.
Well, look at Nagoshi-san, right? That guy worked on like Super Monkey Ball before he moved to the Yakuza series. And then I bet you he saw Shenmue and he's like, there's something, this Yu Suzuki guy's got something.
Right. He can do it better.
But let's do this, but set it, let's do it and set it in the Japanese crime world more so than, talking about like the Chinese crime world, right? And he and then he like became like a guy that looks like he would be in a Yakuza game as well, Nagoshi-san. But and then they turn it into a fucking turn-based action game. Like, let's not talk about that. There's not enough time for that. But
I'm really curious about that.
I like your theory.
Yeah, so I think Yu Suzuki is very much kicking himself right now of going, Shenmue never was the thing I wanted it to be. I wish I was the creator of Yakuza, which he basically could take credit for. In his mind, he probably takes credit for Yakuza, saying, those are my Shenmue games.
Sure. And you know what? I hope Shenmue 3 is good. Like, I hope he has success there. I just think it looks terrible. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
That's what it looks like.
It looks bad, but whatever. Let's see
what were we going to say, Burkoff?
I think I brought this up on Podcast Reload. Wasn't Sleeping Dogs
now Coffee and Beer Cast, by the way, which is Evan is a co-host of. Okay,
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, look, coffee and beer.
Shout out to the coffee and beer podcast. Wasn't Sleeping Dogs supposed to be a Yakuza game?
No, Sleeping Dogs was supposed to be a true crime game.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Sleeping Dogs is a really good game, by the way.
Oh no, absolutely. I was actually really excited for it when it was true crime, and then when they changed to Sleeping Dogs, I'm so sad they never released a second one. That's one game I always wanted a sequel for that I never got.
It was totally on sale on PSN for like $3 like a week ago.
I have the PS3 and the PS4 version. That's how much I liked this game.
Yeah.
One of the best it's not even just kind of tangentially related, but there's one great mission in this game where you're supposed to freak out this crime boss. So you stealth your way into his house, and he's like super into feng shui, and you start fucking with like the layout of his apartment and like moving the clock places, like moving like these giant like beautiful like pots he has, and then he comes home and he like totally flips out. It's like those open world games that do something different. It's not just about fighting. It's a separate thing where like you're just fucking with this guy's house so that he goes crazy. And yeah, I just thought I still remember it. It's one of the most memorable missions in that game. It had nothing to do with beating people up.
And you know what's special about that? These games were all released in the summertime. So that is going to be our show for this week. Join us next week. We'd love to have you guys. Evan, Yakuza in the streets, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It is hard to coordinate Japanese, Vegas, and Central Standard Time, but we make it work. If you are interested, again, being on the show, it looks like a title screen right now for the Green Bay Packers, but I'm going to keep going. So if you want to be on the show, just message Burkoff, myself, or McWomble on Sifted Games, and we will get you in our Discord, which will reach out to you to see if you're interested in joining us on the show. We do a bunch of different topics. All of that's broken down in the Discord, so we will talk to you then. Thanks so much for joining us. You can follow us on any of our Twitter handles down below, and Burkoff, get us out of here.
Yeah, I will say that if you're on Sifted, those members get priority if you want to be on the show. Just saying.
That's right.
And on that note, we're out.